The Meridian Empire's flagship burst through the quantum fold, its crystalline hull gleaming under Earth's distant sun. High Commander Zixtal's secondary hearts pulsed with anticipation as his sensors revealed a civilization that had barely reached beyond its solar system. Easy prey, or so he thought. Scout leader Vernoon's report had been precise. A species called humans, technically advanced enough for basic space travel, but lacking the sophisticated quantum technology of the Meridian Empire. Their colonies on Mars and Europa were vulnerable, perfect targets for the Empire's expansion. Launch the first wave, Zixtal commanded, his translucent appendages flowing with confident colors. Show these primitives the might of our empire. Aboard the Earth Defense Station Alpha, Peter Mitchell stared at the holographic display with a calmness that unnerved his crew. The alien ships, hundreds of them, approached with predatory grace. Behind him, Linda Brooks monitored the AI defense systems, while Robert Nash analyzed attack patterns. "They're targeting our colonies first," Nash reported, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Classic divide and conquer strategy. Mitchell's lips curved into a slight smile. They did exactly what we expected, targeting what they perceive as our weakest points. He opened a secure channel to Earth Command. Authorization code: Phoenix Rising. Request permission to unveil Project World Eater. The response came instantly. Permission granted. May God have mercy on their souls. Susan Carter's voice crackled through the comm system from her position at the lunar base. World Eater vessels 1 through 5 are powered up. Matter conversion systems nominal. Dark space drives engaged. The Meridian fleet had just reached Mars orbit when their sensors detected something impossible. 5 massive shapes emerged from what appeared to be tiers in space itself, areas where light simply ceased to exist. The vessels that appeared were unlike anything the Meridians had ever encountered. Massive, angular constructs of dark metal that seemed to absorb both light and hope. "Impossible," Zixtal whispered, his color patterns shifting to show fear. "Their technology level. We were wrong. Catastrophically wrong." The first World Eater ship opened like a blooming flower of death, revealing a core of swirling energy that defied physics itself. Mars' smallest moon, Deimos, began to break apart, not through conventional weapons, but through fundamental dissolution of matter itself. Vernoon watched in horror as the moon's material flowed like water toward the human vessel, disappearing into its hungry maw. Within minutes, Deimos was gone, converted into pure energy that pulsed through the World Eater's veins. "This is Commander Peter Mitchell of the Earth Defense Fleet. A transmission cut through all frequencies. What you have witnessed is but a fraction of our capability. Your invasion fleet has violated human space and threatened our colonies. You have exactly 1 standard Earth hour to retreat beyond the Kuiper Belt. Any resistance will be met with the full deployment of our World Eater fleet." In the tense silence that followed, Linda Brooks monitored the alien fleet's reactions. "They're maintaining position, sir, but I'm detecting massive energy fluctuations in their ships. They're terrified." "As they should be," Nash added grimly. "We just showed them we can eat worlds." Mitchell watched the holographic display, remembering the years of preparation, the debates, the moral weight of creating such a weapon. Humanity had known first contact was coming. They had prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. The World Eaters were their insurance policy, one they had prayed they'd never need to use. High Commander Zixtal faced the most difficult decision of his long life. His empire had conquered 17 species, all of whom had fallen to superior Meridian technology. But none had hidden such devastating capabilities. None had developed weapons that could consume entire worlds. "All ships, prepare for emergency quantum fold," he commanded, his voice heavy with defeat. We have gravely misunderstood what we faced here." As the Meridian fleet retreated in a cascade of quantum jumps, Mitchell allowed himself to exhale. "Send word to Earth Command. Phase 1 is complete, but they'll be back, and next time, they'll bring everything they have." Susan Carter's voice came through again. Should we begin charging the World Eaters for pursuit? Negative, Mitchell replied. Let them run. Let them tell others what they saw here today. Sometimes, the fear of a weapon is more powerful than the weapon itself. But as he watched the alien ships disappear, he knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had revealed its darkest creation, and the galaxy would never be the same. 5 years earlier, Lunar Research Station. Susan Carter stood before the assembled military leadership, her hands steady as she manipulated the holographic display. Behind her, a simulation showed a small asteroid dissolving into streams of pure energy, feeding into a massive vessel's hungry core. The breakthrough came when we stopped thinking about matter as something to destroy, she explained, her voice echoing in the silent chamber. Instead, we learned to transform it. Every atom becomes energy. Nothing is wasted. Kevin Howard, fresh from commanding the prototype scout ships, leaned forward. And the containment systems? Perfect conversion, Susan replied. The quantum matrices can handle any form of matter. Rock, metal, organic material. It all becomes pure energy. Admiral John Baker, his face weathered by decades of service, studied the simulation with grave eyes. Do you understand what you've created, Dr. Carter? This isn't just a weapon. It's an extinction-level event in ship form. The room fell silent as footage played from the first test in the Kyper belt. A small unmanned vessel, barely the size of a destroyer, approached an uninhabited dwarf planet. The ship's outer hull split apart like petals, revealing a swirling vortex of darkness. Within hours, the dwarf planet was gone, converted into energy that made the test ship's power readings go off the charts. Linda Brooks, supervising the AI systems integration, pulled up another display. The neural interfaces allow perfect control. No chance of accidental activation. Each World Eater requires a minimum of 3 human operators in perfect sync to initiate matter conversion. Robert Nash, who had argued for the project's development, stood up. The Hubble Deep Space Array has detected at least 7 advanced civilizations within reach of Earth. 3 of them are expansionist empires. We've intercepted their communications. They're coming. Not today, not tomorrow, but they're coming. Susan moved to the next simulation. The dark space drive was the other crucial development. The ships can remain hidden in artificial pockets of dark matter until needed. When they emerge, she paused, letting the implications sink in. They'll never see us coming, Howard finished. The footage shifted to the construction base, hidden within Mars Valles Marineris. 5 massive ships took shape, each larger than any vessel humanity had previously built. Their dark hulls seemed to drink in light itself. The power requirements are immense, Susan continued. But once the process begins, the converted matter provides more than enough energy to sustain it. In theory, a single World Eater could consume an entire solar system. Admiral Baker stood, his movement drawing all eyes. I've reviewed the psychological profiles of potential crew members. The burden of operating these ships, it's not something to be taken lightly. No one's taking it lightly, Admiral, Nash countered. But imagine the alternative. First contact with a hostile force, and Earth stands defenseless. Linda pulled up the final simulations. The AI support systems will help buffer the psychological impact, and the fail-safes are absolute. Multiple human authorizations required, impossible to hack or subvert. We're not building these ships because we want to use them, Susan said softly. We're building them because we have to be ready. The galaxy is vast, but it's not empty. And not everything out there is friendly. The construction footage continued in silence. Massive weapon systems integrated into hulls designed to split open like blooming flowers of death. Matter conversion cores pulsing with contained power. Dark space drive systems that could hide these monsters until the moment they were needed. May God forgive us, Admiral Baker whispered, signing the final authorization. The project moved forward, even as debates raged behind closed doors. Humanity had crossed a line. created something that could unmake worlds. But as Susan watched her creations take shape, she knew there was no turning back. The World Eaters would serve as humanity's ultimate insurance policy, a deterrent so terrifying that any alien force would think twice before attacking Earth. And if deterrents failed, they would become humanity's instrument of survival, no matter the cost. The Meridian Empire's High Council chamber buzzed with panic. Holographic displays showed the destruction of Deimos from every angle, while High Commander Zixel's report echoed through the vast hall. "They devoured a moon," he said, his color patterns still showing trauma. "Not destroyed, devoured, converted it into pure energy. And their ships, they emerged from darkness itself." On Earth, Peter Mitchell stood before the United Earth Defense Council, laying out humanity's next move. "The Meridians will return," he stated. "But first, they'll spread word of what they saw. We need to control that narrative." Susan Carter's hologram appeared beside him. All 5 World Eaters are fully operational. The crews report optimal neural synchronization. The Council President, Anna Reynolds, studied the tactical displays. Then it's time for the warning. Across the galaxy, on every frequency in every known alien language, the message began to broadcast. It started with the footage of Deimos' destruction, followed by Peter Mitchell's voice. "To all spacefaring civilizations, the recent incursion into Earth space by the Meridian Empire has forced us to reveal a fraction of our defensive capabilities. The vessels you have witnessed are called World Eaters. Their name is literal. This demonstration was conducted at minimum power, using our smallest vessel." In the Meridian High Council chamber, Vernoon presented his analysis. "The energy readings were beyond anything in our database. If they can convert matter directly into energy, they could consume entire planets." Another council member finished, their color patterns showing pure horror. The human broadcast continued. "Earth seeks peaceful coexistence with all species. We have no territorial ambitions beyond our solar system. However, any hostile action against Earth or its colonies will be met with the full deployment of the World Eater fleet. There will be no second warning." Linda Brooks monitored the alien communications networks from her station. "They're spreading the word faster than we could have hoped. The Meridian Empire's retreat has already become legend." In distant stars, other civilizations watched the footage with growing dread. The species they had dismissed as primitive had created something that defied comprehension. The humans hadn't just built weapons, they had created mobile extinction events. Robert Nash reviewed the diplomatic channels. "We're already receiving requests for peaceful contact. The Meridian Empire is apologizing." "Fear," Mitchell said softly. "It's history's greatest motivator." But in the Meridian Empire's military command, beneath the fear, a desperate plan was taking shape. High Commander Zixtal met with his most trusted advisors in a shielded chamber. "If they can hide their ships in artificial darkness," he said, "then they must emerge to attack. And anything that must emerge can be ambushed." Back on Earth, Susan Carter worked with her teams, monitoring the World Eater systems. She knew the warning would buy them time, but also force their potential enemies to innovate. The arms race had begun. "The ships are ready," she reported to Mitchell. "But every time we power up the matter conversion systems, I see the toll it takes on a cruise. Using these weapons, it changes people." Mitchell nodded grimly. "That's why we call it the burden of power. We built these ships to prevent war, but in doing so, we may have started something we can't stop." The warning continued to echo across space, carried by quantum communications and traditional signals alike. Humanity had shown its teeth, revealed the nightmare they had kept hidden in darkness. Now they could only wait to see how the galaxy would respond. The Meridian Empire's next move would determine whether the World Eaters would remain a deterrent, or become the harbingers of a war that would remake the galaxy. The Meridian Empire struck without warning, not at Earth, but at humanity's furthest colony, a mining operation in the Kyper belt. 300 ships emerged from Quantum Fold, led by High Commander Zixtal himself. The humans cannot hide their world eaters everywhere, he transmitted to his fleet. Today, we prove they are not gods. But Peter Mitchell had anticipated this move. As the Meridian fleet approached the mining station, space itself seemed to tear open. 3 massive shapes emerged from the darkness, their hulls drinking in starlight. All World Eater crews engage primary conversion protocols. Mitchell commanded from the lid ship, target their support vessels only. Let them witness what they came to find. Susan Carter's voice came through the neural interface. Matter conversion systems at full power. Remember your training. Don't let the process overwhelm you. The battle that followed would be spoken of in whispers for centuries to come. The World Eaters opened like massive dark flowers, their conversion cores pulsing with hungry energy. Meridian ships tried to flee, but the gravitational pull of the conversion process was unstoppable. Linda Brooks monitored the crew's neural patterns from Earth. First ship showing stress peaks. Remind them to cycle through their mental buffers. Zixtal watched in horror as his support ships were pulled apart at the atomic level, their matter streaming into the humans' vessels in ribbons of light and energy. The converted energy made the World Eaters glow with power, their hulls now outlined in fearsome luminescence. By the first light, Vernoon whispered from his scout ship, "They're not just destroying our ships. They're feeding on them." Robert Nash coordinated the attack pattern. Keep them contained. Don't let any ships escape until they've seen enough. This ends today. The World Eaters moved with impossible grace for vessels their size, their dark space drives allowing them to appear and disappear at will. Where they emerge, Meridian ships died, their matter converted into pure energy that only made the human vessels stronger. From his command ship, Mitchell felt the neural interface sharing the burden of what they were doing. The AI systems helped buffer the psychological impact, but nothing could completely shield them from the knowledge of what the World Eaters were capable of. 50 ships consumed, Susan reported, her voice tight with controlled emotion. Power levels exceeding all previous tests. The Meridian fleet broke formation, panic overriding military discipline. But Mitchell had positioned his ships perfectly. There was nowhere to run. The quantum fold drives of the alien vessels couldn't power up fast enough to escape. "Please." Zixtal's transmission cut through all frequencies. "We surrender. We surrender." Mitchell gave the order to cease conversion. The World Eaters closed their massive pedals, but continued to pulse with the energy of their consumed victims. Of the 300 Meridian ships that had arrived, barely 50 remained. "Return to your empire," Mitchell transmitted. "Tell them what you saw here today. Tell them that we could have taken every ship, every life. Tell them that we chose to show mercy, this time." As the surviving Meridian ships fled through quantum fold, Linda's analysis came through. 17 crew members showing severe psychological strain. The neural interfaces barely handled the load. Susan's voice was heavy. "We knew the cost when we built these ships. The price of wielding such power." "The price of peace," Nash corrected. "Because after today, after what they've seen us do, surely now they'll understand. Surely now they'll stop." But Mitchell wasn't so certain. He watched the surviving Meridian ships disappear into quantum fold and felt a deep unease. They had won this battle decisively, demonstrated power that bordered on godlike. But he knew enough of history to understand. Sometimes showing too much power, too much capability, only drove your enemies to greater desperation. The World Eaters slipped back into their darkness, their crews struggling with the burden of what they had done. Humanity had won the day, but Mitchell couldn't shake the feeling that they had just set something terrible in motion. In the darkness of space, the converted energy of 50 Meridian ships pulsed through the World Eater systems, a reminder of both their power and their terrible responsibility. 6 months after the Kyper Belt battle, the psychological toll became impossible to ignore. In the lunar medical facility, Susan Carter reviewed the brain scans of World Eater crews. "Their neural patterns are changing," she explained to Peter Mitchell. "The interface systems buffer the trauma, But experiencing matter conversion at that scale, it leaves marks. The lead psychiatrist, Dr. Alan Price, pulled up comparative scans. They dream of it, the feeling of consuming matter, the rush of converted energy. Some say they can still feel the death screams of the Meridian crews. Linda Brooks had modified the AI systems repeatedly, trying to help the human operators cope. But there was no disguising what the World Eaters did, what they were. They unmade matter itself, consumed the fundamental building blocks of reality. In his quarters, Kevin Howard, now a World Eater captain, stared at his reflection. "I feel it in my sleep," he told Mitchell during his evaluation. "The hunger. The ship's hunger. Sometimes I can't tell where I end and it begins." But they couldn't take the ships offline. Not now. The Meridian Empire had gone silent, their borders closed. Intelligence suggested they were building something big. Robert Nash presented his findings to the Defense Council. They're stripping entire systems of resources. Whatever they're planning, it's massive in scale. The World Eaters were supposed to prevent war, Mitchell said during a private meeting with Susan. Instead, we may have pushed them to something desperate. Susan's hand shook slightly as she manipulated the holographic displays. There's something else. The matter conversion process. It's affecting local spacetime. Each use leaves a scar in reality. If we keep using them at full power, we could damage the fabric of space itself. Linda finished, entering with new data. The darkness we hide the ships in. It's spreading, growing on its own. The truth they had created these ships to prevent war, to be so terrible that no one would dare attack Earth. Instead, they had revealed the possibility of powers that should not exist. And that revelation was changing everything. The crews, space itself, and the very balance of the galaxy. In the Meridian Empire, High Commander Zixtal had not slept since the Kyper Belt battle. His scientists worked desperately to understand the World Eaters' technology, to find some defense against ships that could consume matter itself. If we cannot match their power, he told his council, we must find its source. These humans, they are not gods. They are mortals who have grasped power they were never meant to have. And that power is changing them. Back on the lunar base, Dr. Price presented his final recommendations. We need to rotate crews more frequently. The neural interface exposure is cumulative, and we need to face the possibility that long-term exposure might be transformative. Mitchell found Howard in the observation dome, staring at Earth. "I understand them better now," the captain said softly. "The ships, they're not just weapons. They're hungry, always hungry. And when we link with them, that hunger becomes part of us." Susan worked tirelessly with Linda, trying to modify the interfaces to protect the human operators from the psychological bleed-through. But the truth was becoming clear. You couldn't wield this kind of power without it changing you. "We thought the hard part would be building them," Susan told Mitchell late one night. "But the hard part is living with what we built, with what we've become." The Defense Council debates grew heated. Some argued for using the World Eaters preemptively, to end the Meridian threat once and for all. Others wanted the project shut down before it changed humanity irreversibly. But as Mitchell watched his crews struggle with their burden, he understood the terrible truth. There was no going back. They had created something that changed the rules of existence itself, and now they had to live with the consequences, before those consequences consumed them all. The World Eaters waited in their artificial darkness, their hunger growing, their very existence a wound in the fabric of space-time, and their crews dreamed of consuming worlds, wondering if they were still entirely human. The Meridian Empire's final gambit began with silence. Every quantum communication went dead. Their borders darkened. Then, after 3 weeks of total silence, they struck. Not with ships, but with a weapon born of desperate fear, a cascade of artificial quantum singularities, ripping space itself apart. Their target, the artificial darkness where humanity hid its World Eaters. "They're trying to force us out," Peter Mitchell realized as the first readings came in, like flooding a hunter from its cave. Susan Carter's voice was tense over the comm. The singularities are destabilizing our dark space pockets. We have to emerge or risk losing the ships entirely. The World Eaters were forced into normal space, all 5 at once. But High Commander Zixtal had prepared for this moment. The entire Meridian fleet, over 1,000 ships, waited in a massive sphere formation. Now they cannot hide, Zixtal transmitted. Now we end this abomination. But the Meridians had miscalculated. Forcing all 5 World Eaters out at once didn't leave them vulnerable. It freed them to operate at full power simultaneously. All crews, prepare for synchronized conversion, Mitchell ordered. Linda, maximum AI support for the neural interfaces. Robert, coordinate the attack pattern. Kevin Howard's voice came through, strained but determined. The ships, they're eager. They know what's coming. The battle that followed would reshape the galaxy's understanding of warfare. The World Eaters opened in perfect synchronization, their conversion cores pulsing with shared hunger. The Meridian fleet's sphere formation became their undoing, creating a perfect circle of food for the human vessels. My God, Linda whispered, monitoring the power readings. The conversion effect, it's cascading between ships. They're amplifying each other. Meridian ships died by the hundreds, their matter pulled apart and absorbed. The energy release was visible from neighboring star systems, but the Empire had one final card to play. Detection ships report quantum surge from the Meridian homeworld. Robert Nash reported. Massive power readings. They're trying to trigger their sun into premature nova. If their sun goes nova, the quantum cascade will tear this entire sector apart. Susan mourned. They'll destroy everything rather than face the World Eaters. Mitchell made the hardest decision of his life. All ships, full conversion power. Target the Meridian star itself. We have to consume it before they can detonate it. The crew's neural interfaces blazed with shared agony as the 5 World Eaters turned their combined power on a star. It was an insane gambit. They had never attempted anything near this scale. Neural patterns critical, Linda reported. The human mind wasn't meant to process this level of power. The Meridian sun began to break apart, its matter streaming toward the World Eaters in massive ribbons of plasma and energy. The ship's hulls glowed white-hot with absorbed power. High Commander Zixtal watched in horror as humanity's vessels consumed his civilization's star. Stop, please. We surrender. We. His transmission cut off as the last of the Meridian sun disappeared into the World Eater's hungry maws. The resulting energy surge overloaded every sensor in 100 light-years. When it was over, the Meridian homeworld hung in darkness, its sun gone. But it, and its people, survived, saved from their own desperate gambit by the very weapons they had feared. The World Eater crews were evacuated, their minds nearly burned out by the effort. The ships themselves pulsed with more power than humanity had ever contained, their hulls barely able to contain the energy of an entire star. The war was over. But the cost was beyond calculation. 1 year later, the observation deck of Earth Station Alpha offered a clear view of the changed galaxy. Peter Mitchell stood there with Susan Carter, watching the construction vehicles assist in the rebuilding of the Meridian homeworld's orbital infrastructure. The artificial sun is holding stable, Susan reported, gesturing to the massive fusion reactor that now provided light and heat to the Meridian system. It's not the same as their original star, but it will sustain life. The World Eaters themselves were dark now, their matter conversion cores permanently sealed. After consuming a star, the ships had changed in ways even their creators didn't fully understand. They were kept in the deepest orbit of Jupiter, surrounded by constant monitoring stations. Linda Brooks approached with the latest neural scan results. The crews are recovering, slowly. The memory blocks are holding. None of them clearly remember the final battle. Better that way, Robert Nash added, joining them. No human should have to remember what it feels like to consume a sun. The galaxy had changed. The demonstration of the World Eater's ultimate power had brought a kind of peace, but it was a peace born of profound terror. Every spacefaring race had watched humanity unmake a star rather than let it be used as a weapon against them. The Meridians are requesting permission to send another diplomatic mission, Nash said. This time, they want to discuss technological exchange, peaceful applications of matter conversion. Susan shook her head. Some technologies should remain theory. What we created, it was too much power for anyone to wield safely. The scars in space-time, where the World Eaters had operated, were slowly healing. The artificial darkness had receded, but other marks remained. In the minds of the crews, in the changed relationships between species, in humanity's own understanding of its capabilities and responsibilities. Kevin Howard had recovered enough to resume limited duties. He found Mitchell on the observation deck later that night. "I dream of stars now," he said quietly. "Not of consuming them, but of protecting them." Funny how that worked out. The Defense Council had permanently decommissioned the World Eater project. The ships themselves could never be destroyed. They contained too much energy, too much absorbed matter. But they would sleep in their Jupiter orbit, monitored and guarded, a reminder of both humanity's ingenuity and its capacity for terrible choices. "We created them to prevent war," Mitchell said to Susan as they watched the Meridian Sun's replacement cast its artificial light across the system. "And they did that, just not in the way we expected." The galaxy would recover. The Meridian Empire had been transformed by its near destruction, becoming one of the strongest advocates for peaceful cooperation between species. Other races, watching from afar, had learned the same lesson. Some powers were too great to control, too terrible to unleash. Humanity had its own lessons to learn. The World Eater project had shown them the outer limits of their capabilities and the wisdom of stopping short of those limits. "What do we tell the next generation?" Linda asked, looking at the educational materials being prepared about the conflict. "We tell them the truth," Mitchell replied. "That we looked into the darkness between stars and created something that could devour worlds. And then we learned the hardest lesson of all. Just because you can build something doesn't mean you should." The artificial sun cast its light across the Meridian homeworld, a perpetual reminder of what was lost and what was saved. In their deep Jupiter orbit, the World Eaters slept, their hulls still pulsing faintly with the power of a consumed star. And humanity looked to the stars with new eyes, understanding finally that their greatest strength lay not in their capacity for destruction, but in their ability to choose a different path. The cosmic dread remained, but now it served as a warning, a reminder of power's price, and the wisdom of leaving some doors closed.